Hi, we're here with Brandon Zick, and we want to talk a little bit about tariffs and soybeans. I understand soybeans are a big problem. The farmers are going under. There's a terrible situation. What's the real story?
Well, that's not exactly the case. We work with a lot of farmers who grow soybeans.
Right.
And there's a lot of issues with tariffs now that have certainly affected U.S. soybean price. But what we've seen is really a trader-driven market that have gone from very net long to very net short. It's actually, in terms of negotiating a tariff, it's a perfect time to do this. Brazil's close to being sold out of their soybean crops, and U.S. farmers still have soybeans in the field, so they're not selling. A lot of them have pre-sold at higher prices. So we're in a situation now that the price on the board isn't really meaningful to farmers.
Well, how does this work? I mean, if you've got stuff in the field, how can you sell it ahead of time? Is they're selling it ahead of time or not selling it ahead of time? And so the idea of what the spot price is of soybeans really is irrelevant? Is that...
To some extent. Certainly farmers carry grain in grain bins throughout the year, and in that case, if they haven't sold forward through futures contracts, spot price is important.
Okay.
But to some extent, many farmers, as a form of risk management, in the spring before their crop is even planted, they're selling forward a certain percentage of their crop. So most of the farmers we work with have sold 40 to 50% of their soybeans before the tariff talk came in. So they have a large percentage of their crop sold at much higher prices. And today they're willing to wait until harvest before they start deciding if they're going to price anything else.
Well, we hear a lot about China, of course, targeting the soybeans with their retaliatory tariffs. But everybody says, well, they'll just go to Brazil and buy. What's the situation as far as Brazil's concerned?
Yeah, that's interesting. China does import 2/3 of the world's soybeans. Brazil produces about 55% of the world's soybeans, and the U.S. produces almost 40%. So for China to say they will not import U.S. soybeans, that means they have to actually cut consumption. We don't think that that's a realistic target for them. In some cases now, Brazilian harvest is done. They've sold most of the soybeans they have. They're cleaning out everything they can for their domestic industries to send to China, and they're actually buying U.S. soybeans.
So they don't have soybeans.
That's right. They're done. They're sold out. They've seen a nice price increase based on these tariffs, and their farmers have certainly been profitable. But now their domestic crush industries are actually importing U.S. soybeans, and that's really, to the extent that China has any ability to avoid the U.S., it's really limited by what their domestic consumption is.
Does this mean that the U.S. farmers just sell to Brazil, and Brazil repackages it, sells it to China, and everybody's never mind?
Yeah, it's not quite as easy as that, but what we're seeing is more transaction costs and friction in the market. So the grain handlers are making more money by doing some of that arbitrage. But yeah, that is the gist of what would eventually happen over time. If the tariffs continued through harvest, a lot of U.S. soybeans would find their way to Brazil, and I'm almost certain they would eventually find their way to China.
This sounds like Rosanna Dana, right?
Never
mind.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.